Hi everybody! Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have my fifth layout that I made using the My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit for July. For this layout, I was thinking that I wanted to include triangles on my page. I've been seeing so many beautiful pages that have triangles on them, but I didn't want to use somebody else's arrangement of triangles, so I thought if I cut out a large group of triangles in different sizes, I could arrange them on a paper and I could come up with an original arrangement. So I took this piece of paper and I did a lot of folding and cutting, and you could see that I am cutting squares in half and then I'm cutting the pieces in half again, and I feel that this will give me a lot of shapes and a large variety of the shapes so that I can arrange them on a page. So I'm taking a piece of cardstock and now I'm just going to play around with them, see if I can find an arrangement that I like. So right away I'm kind of feeling these larger triangles, and I'm tucking some of the smaller triangles around as well. And I just want the whole unit to look balanced. And I didn't include all the footage of me moving things around, but I did finally decide on this configuration of triangles, and you could see that off to the right I have cut some of the pattern papers from the kit the same size as each of these triangles. And I'm using my pencil to trace around them, so I will not only know where to put the mixed media, but I will also know where to put the pattern paper once I'm done with the mixed media. So I have this piece of cardstock. This is a heavyweight 120-pound smooth white cardstock, and I've already coated it with some gesso, and now I'm adding some sprays to the background. For this layout, I'm using some Distress Oxide sprays. I'm using scattered straw and dried marigold right now, and I'm using the packaging technique, and I'm squishing the color down, and I'm also using some water to help dilute the color when I think it's gotten a little too dark. You can see that I'm using those pencil guides that I made earlier to determine where I want to put the color. The reason that I chose these two colors, scattered straw and dried marigold, is because these are colors that are found in the collection. They're not the dominant colors in the collection, but there is a pretty yellow color, and I thought scattered straw was pretty close to that color. And then there's a little bit of orange, particularly in the butterflies that I'm going to be putting on the layout. So I thought that these would be two good colors that would look nice in the background, but they're very different from the colors that I'm going to use for most of the triangles that I'm going to add to the layout. On the bottom here, I had a little bit of overspray, so I'm just using some water to clean that up. And now I'm going to be adding some splatters, and I add splatters in both of the colors. I do try to put the splatters, for the most part, around the outside of the large area of color, and I like the way that kind of makes the large area of color fade into the background a little bit. It provides an area of transition where there's a little color, but not a lot. Now I'm sprinkling some water around the background, and then I use a paper towel to soak up those droplets of water, and that lifts up some of the color and makes kind of a cool effect. It's not as noticeable on these very light colors as it is on darker colors, but I still like having that variation in the background. And now I'm adding some white splatters, which I love to add. This is just watered down white acrylic paint. Now that the background is mostly done, not totally done, but mostly done, I'm going to be working on those triangles. So I use the edge of my scissors and I just lightly distress each of the triangles. It's not a lot of distressing. I just wanted to add a little bit of texture to the edges. Then I use the Distress Oxide pads to ink the edges of all of the triangles, and for that, the color that I'm using is called Faded Jeans. I want to pop up all of those triangles on some foam. So here I'm just cutting some fun foam to size, and I'm putting it on the back of all the triangles, the big ones to the medium ones to the small ones. And now I'm attaching those down to the layout using some ATG adhesive that I just roll over that fun foam. And now I'm placing the triangles on the background, and I'm still using the guides that I made with the pencil lines to find the right spot for each of those triangles. And you can see I did a little bit of switching of the triangles. And then I was thinking that there were a few areas I wanted to add a little bit more color to. So I went back in with some more of the scattered straw and dried marigold, and I just added it into a couple of places around the edges of those blue triangles. I didn't want to get any of the Distress Oxide onto the triangles, so I am using a paintbrush to control the color a little bit better. And then you can see here that I'm adding some splatters to all those areas that I added more paint to. I wanted to see what I could make with the stamp set that was included in the kit this month. It's a layered stamp set so that you can put down multiple layers of color to build up your flower. So this is the background stamp. So I'm picking the lightest color that I have and I'm making some bases for the flowers. Then I'm going in with a slightly darker stamp. And excuse my head, I'm just trying to make sure that the second layer is lined up with the first layer. And I make quite a few of these flowers. I try all different combinations. On this layout, I only end up using a few flowers, but this is the method that I use to make all of them. And now you can see that I'm using the darkest color to put on the top layer. And I like the way these came out, and I wanted to keep experimenting. So now I'm using some dye ink as the base, and I stamp 2 flowers, and I stamp, you could see this base, I stamp that twice to make sure that it's dark enough. Now I go back to my Distress Oxide and I put the second layer on using a slightly darker color. And then I go back in with the third stamp, and this time I use some StazOn ink in jet black. You could see here that I have all different colors. I tried all different things. I fussy cut all the flowers out. And now I'm going back in with a paint marker and I'm just highlighting along the edges of the flowers and then along some of the lines that are stamped in the flowers. And I just think that this makes the flowers look a lot more dimensional. And I'm using a marker that's called a painter's marker, and it is in ultra white. I'm using the ultra fine tip, but you could use any paint marker that you have. I just purchased this white paint marker. In the past, I've always used a white Jelly Roll pen when I wanted to have white on a project that I was doing, but I do find that this is really handy to have. So I'm really glad that I added this to my mixed media stash here. It's definitely great for making very, very white lines on anything that you would like to highlight. So then once I had all of those flowers completed, I went back to my layout. I'm using some blueprint sketch to ink the edges of those flowers and also of the title. And I'm using black soot Distress Oxide to ink the edges of these 2 border strips. I do put these down on the layout, but I don't end up keeping them. I actually use them on another layout that I have already made a video for, but at this moment I'm thinking that I'm going to be using those on the layout. And I'm also inking the edges of all of the butterflies and also a die cut clock that I'm planning on including. I mounted my photo on some white cardstock and I attached it directly to the triangles because the triangles are already popped up on foam. I didn't want to pop the photo up any further. I'm attaching down the border strips to the top and the bottom. And now I'm taking those flowers that I just stamped and I'm spreading them around the layout and I'm trying to decide where I think they would look best. I was thinking that maybe tucking them in between the triangles would be a good place for them. So right now I'm just kind of trialing them all out. I also want to add some of the dimensional Prima flowers to the layout. And I just love the way the layout looks when that deep blue color is added to the background. I feel like it just makes the whole layout look a little bit brighter. I tucked a die cut clock right behind the photo on the right side. And now I'm going to add some butterflies to the background. There was a piece of pattern paper in the kit this month that was just covered in butterflies of all different sizes. So I fussy cut all of them out and I've been using them on my layouts this month. You could see here that I'm scattering them all around. And then there was that die cut that says love that I placed on the top. Earlier on, I had inked the edges, and that's going to be part of my title. And the photo that I'm using for this layout is of a lake that's not too far from my house. My older daughter and my husband and I often walk around it. It's about 2 miles around, and they recently built a walkway. There was part of a walkway, but I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, they continued the walkway to go all the way around the lake. And it was late in the evening, as you could see, and the sky looked so beautiful, so I snapped a picture with my phone. I want to call this layout Love the Lake. So I'm taking some gold stickers, letter stickers that were in a previous My Creative Scrapbook kit, and I'm placing them on the large striped triangle on the bottom, and those lines make it very easy for me to line up the letters. I added a gold heart to the O in love, and now I'm going to start popping up some of the elements of the background. So I use some foam and I pop up the word love, and now I'm going to start attaching the butterflies down to the background. So I want them to have some dimension. So I'm adding a little bit of foam to the wings, and then I'm adding some adhesive to the foam on the wings and also to the center. And then when I press down on the center of the butterfly, the wings pop up a little bit. And there are quite a few butterflies on this layout, so I don't include footage of me popping up all of them on the foam, but I did do the same thing to all of the butterflies. And now I'm ready to attach the flowers down to the background, the dimensional flowers. So I'm using some Elmer's gel glue, and I'm putting a decent amount behind each of the flowers to hold those in place. And I just had that clock tucked there, so I added some adhesive to that. And I think I got a little carried away with those flowers that I stamped because I liked them so much, so I took just 2 of them off. I felt that it looked a little bit better with just the few that I have now. The larger dark blue flower on the left side of the layout had some really pretty glitter on it, and I wanted to add some glitter to the other flowers on the page. So I took some Bo Bunny glitter paste. This is a clear glitter paste, and it just adds some sparkle and some glitter to whatever you add it to. So I use a paintbrush and I brush that over the other flowers. And now I'm going to be adding these leaves that I die cut from some regular white cardstock. So at first I started painting them with the glitter paste and putting them on the layout directly, but then I decided that I would leave them to dry first, and then once they were dry, I would add them to the layout. They were just a little bit too flimsy when they still had the glitter paste on them. Here I'm adding the date, which I did not want to forget to do because I would find it very difficult to find the date on this picture because it's the only photo that I took this day. And now that the leaves have dried, they're a little stiffer, and I'm able to more easily tuck them into the layout. And you can see that I'm cutting some of the branches into individual leaves so that I can tuck those in a few small places around the layout. And when I say small places, I mean little areas that are too small to handle all 3 leaves. You could see some of those places that I'm putting the leaves. As I often like to do, I decided to add some photo corners to the photo. So I took one of the pattern papers that I used to make some of the triangles, and I used an EK Success photo corner punch, and I punched out 4 photo corners. I'm putting 1 in each corner. I am inking the edges and applying some adhesive to each of them. Now I'm covering up my photo, and I want to go in and add a few blue splatters. I don't want a lot of blue in the background, but I just wanted to bring the background and the large cluster in the center together. So I just add a few very, very small blue splatters around the background, and then I'm going in with a paper towel and picking up the extra color just to make sure that the blue splatters aren't going to be too dark. I also add a couple of black splatters. I didn't want to have a lot of black splatters, and I wanted to be careful not to have any huge black splatters, so I'm just going around the layout, adding a couple of splatters, and in some cases, I'm just touching that little straw to the background to make a few more dots. The butterflies have a lot of black on them, so I thought that it would make sense to have some black dots in the background, and that would help to bring the background and the main cluster together a little bit. Something I've started doing in the last year or so is adding pearls to the photo corners, and I just love that little bit of extra touch that the pearls add. So I had some gold colored pearls and I added those around the photo. And then I decided that these borders really weren't adding anything to the layout. So I pulled them up as carefully as I can, and as I said, I do use those on another layout. And I like the way that looks now. I feel that it looks a little bit lighter and less cluttered. That completes this layout. Here are some close-ups of the page. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. Thank you for all of your likes and all of your comments. I really appreciate them. Please take a look at the description box. You'll see a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. This is the limited edition kit, and you can check out this kit and all the other beautiful kits that they have every month available for you. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope to see you all again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.